everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Performance Cafe. I hope that you are keeping nice and warm, because right now in South Africa, well, at least in Gauteng where I live, it's cold, it's wet, and it's rainy. The problem is that we're a summer rainfall area, so I don't understand the rain right now. Big problem. We're going to have to speak to the meteorologists about that. So today's topic sort of is a little bit of an offshoot of last week's, where we asked ourselves, how do we properly make sure that people have what they need in order to take accountability for particular pieces of work or whatever it may be. So one of the things that we spoke about was autonomy, and then I had a conversation yet again with my godson. He's quite a good thinker, and I enjoy spinning ideas off of him. And he came up with a really interesting idea, and he said, how do people know what they don't know when they need to know it? So the question is, people want autonomy. They want to be the leader of the cricket team. They want to be the head of the ballet troupe. Even at school, people know they want autonomy. That's not the problem. Is how do we know how to take it? And, it was quite interesting, because I said, well, that's been done to death a little bit, but one forgets that, as you progress through life, you have life experiences that others might not share. So today we're going to talk about something called responsible autonomy. So this is not just autonomy. No, this is not just here, go take, do it. It's about how do we really grab hold of that autonomy and make the best of it, so that we subsequently are trusted with more and more autonomy, because this is where we want to go. We want to have more and more say and control of what happens in our work environment. So the first thing I want to just bring to mind here is that delegation, so making someone else responsible for something, is actually quite risky. If we think about it, if we take a look at a manager, their whole role is to manage a team. So when one person in the team does something wrong, it might not be a huge thing in that person's world, but the manager could actually be held accountable for what this person did. And I think that's a little bit of what we sort of miss in the process. Is managers are sometimes, we feel like they can be a little bit dragon-like. They don't actually do that because it's fun for them. It's because they are ultimately held accountable. Wait, I need to sit back. I'm not sitting properly on this chair. There we go. Shall we be in a cafe and sit up straight like a army sergeant? So when we take a look at giving people autonomy, or as us taking on that autonomy, we might feel ready for it, but we don't know what we don't know. Now, there are a couple of places where this kicks in, and I don't always think it's the obvious ones. So let's talk through an obvious one. If you've never worked before, you are an intern at some other company. You walk in, there are policies, there are procedures, there's a culture. There's a written culture and there's an unwritten culture, which is the sneaky one. Maybe you might not have worked for a particular manager before, or you might not have worked in a particular team before. So even moving within an organization can be difficult. And I learned that lesson because I went from one job to another. And in the first job, I was held as quite a high achiever. And I stank at the second job. And the reason for that is because I was acting as if I was still in the old job. And the new job had other requirements. So it sounds so good to say, well, you are educated enough, you are old enough, you have enough experience to know what to do. I think that assumption can sometimes shoot us in the foot, even when we are, as I said, slightly more mature and slightly more used to the work environment. So today I thought we could knuckle down and say, as someone, let's say, for example, a team member who wants to take on some form of responsibility, how do we go about it? Well, last week I started with 4 pointers, and it landed up being more what managers should do to make sure that you understand what is required of you as a team member who wants to take on that autonomy. But I thought this week, let's get really practical, because there might be tips and hints and tricks that I know that might be very valuable to someone watching this video, watching this live stream. And hello to everyone watching the live stream. The grand scheme is important. So last week I spoke about managers, make people understand where they fit into the bigger scheme of things. But I don't think that it's a matter of only the manager should take that approach. I think the person looking for the autonomy must also understand, what am I doing and where does it fit in? We're going to get into more detail in a minute. Do things like take a look at your strengths and any gaps that you may have in skills, and recognize them and discuss them with your manager and find out, what do we need in order to really make the most of this opportunity for you. So often we find, and women are apparently quite prone to this, is if they see a job description and they don't fit it 100%, they don't go for the job description. Well, I understand the integrity perspective of that, but it also means that there's very little room to grow. Because if you can already do all of it, why would you carry on just looking for the same old thing? So I think it's always good to say, let's have 80% of the strengths and the skills necessary, but let's be really frank about the 20% that we don't have, and how are we going to work in order to make that happen? And gee, there is so much free content out nowadays. You don't even need to ask a manager. You could just go online and search for the necessary course, and you could probably get a good start. Next, communicate. Communicate with team members, with peers, with upline managers, with anyone that works with you that might report into you. Talk to people, because the problem with autonomy is that people think that we're going to take it and run off and do things on our own, which is fine. We want that control. But unless we communicate, people are left in the dark, and that's when things go bump in the night. So do things like discuss the brief you've been given, discuss the plans you have, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Discuss codependencies. If you've got someone that is dependent on this piece of work but isn't your peer, isn't in your team, isn't your boss, isn't your upline manager, then go and speak to those people. Don't leave anyone out, because those codependencies actually could have a huge impact, especially since there's a high probability that your codependency has another codependency and can create a codependency, right? So the more productive we are as a team, the more we are talking and collaborating, the more or the better the work will turn out. So let's start off with asking of questions. So when we're talking about a brief, when we're asking, what is it that needs to be done? What is already there, and what can I leverage to complete the job? Where does this fit in the bigger scheme of things? Again, with that dependencies, codependencies, but also understanding, how will this thing contribute to the larger organization? How will it contribute to our customers? Even better, how will it make the world a better place? And yes, adding a rivet to a car might not seem like a big deal, but in the end, someone's child can go to school because their car was built eventually. So don't limit your thinking. See it in the bigger picture context, and you will understand what your contribution is, because it's your contribution that you're going to be measured on. So the more you understand what your contribution is and what's expected, the better you're going to be at nailing the brief and getting it done. Another interesting question, this comes back to the strength skills perspective that I shared earlier, is why me and why now? And this is not a question you ask yourself. This is not a doubt thing. This is a, dear manager, you think I'm the right person for the job. What are the skills? What are the strengths that you think I bring to the party? What is it that you think I should grow in lieu of skills? And what is it that you think I do that I should just step back from a little bit, because that is not going to work in this context? Imagine how many managers would have done a better job if they realized that in managing, they must start managing people and stop doing the job they used to do. I think many of us have had the example of the manager who's forever trying to do our jobs, forever micromanaging us. because they've not been told to let go of the thing they used to do and used to do well. So it wasn't because of a problem, and taken over this new thing and stepped up into it and understood what the expectations are there. The other questions that you need to ask, and we've spoken a lot about empathy as part of accountability, and of course, autonomy is also part of our accountability theme, so they're all meshing together beautifully. But where we can use a bit of empathy is around questions like, who is the person I'm doing this for? Sorry, I've got a bit of a scratch in the throat. What am I like? What are their likes and dislikes? What has worked in the past when I've worked from them if you've got a bit of history? If you don't have that history, what do I see them rewarding other people for? So, there's an interesting thing. When I was still doing graphic design and when I was doing web, managing teams that were doing web development, I did not do it myself. I'm not that talented. What we would see is a client would go, I want a green block, a blue block, and I want a red circle in the middle. And you give them exactly what they asked for. And they go, oh, that's not what I saw in my mind. And I had to laugh yesterday. I saw a meme that said, the moment AI takes over, AI cannot take over creative services roles, because clients actually never know what they want, despite what they're telling you. They've got to read between the lines and navigate, and AI is not there. And I thought that's a perfect example for what we see going on here, is that what people have in their mind is not necessarily what they're communicating. The blocks must have rounded corners. The images must have drop shadows, but they didn't say that. But they could see that, but they didn't know to add that, right? So I think it's a good idea for us to try and proactively understand, who is this person? Do they prefer the numbers approach? Do they prefer a people approach? Do they prefer that we complete a job and come back, or highly unlikely? Or do they prefer that we keep them updated throughout so that they can see where we are going? Do they like being communicated to on email or WhatsApp? Do they prefer to have a face-to-face meeting or a virtual meeting? Or are they back on email and WhatsApp? So I think understanding who this person is also going to help you understand what they want from you and how they want it from you. Then, when you watch them rewarding others, try and understand, if you don't have a history with them, when do they praise other people? How do they praise other people? What kind of work do they really enjoy? Do they enjoy being part of it? Do they want to stand aside? All these things are clues that are going to help you manage, because you see, you were given a brief, but it's a package deal, because the brief is subject to the person who gave it to you and the vision that they have. And if that vision comes from higher ups, you might even find that the person themselves might not be quite 100% on what the vision is. And then the next question, and you'll see there's a lot of questions here, and what I really love about it is that it's almost like a coaching approach to managing up. Because in coaching, we ask a lot of questions to get to the crux of the matter, to really understand what's going on here. And so it's only by asking these questions that we sometimes get the information we need. Because managers are so busy that they want to go, there you go, and rush off and do something else. But actually, we know it doesn't always work that way. So ask for feedback. Ask for feedback in the beginning, in the middle, in the end. Don't wait till the end again to get that feedback. We can't actually fix anything when we're already at the deadline. And that's the other thing. Be very aware of when is the deadline, and maybe set some deadlines, mini deadlines, milestones for yourself that are a couple of days ahead, so that you can track your progress, so that you know if anything should go wrong, how much wiggle room do I have? Ask the feedback. Don't expect a 20-point feedback. Sometimes you can just ask feedback over a cup of coffee. Sometimes you can send a quick WhatsApp and say, this is where I'm at. Are you still happy with this direction? Just really don't be afraid of it. I know we often don't ask for feedback in case we get proven wrong or we've made a mistake, but actually the sooner we figure it out, the better. And that actually brings to my next point. When there are mistakes, Don't ask, tell. Immediately, the moment you realize something is going wrong, inform people around you. Firstly, because then they have an idea whether this is going to impact their deliverables or not. You're allowing them to plan. And if you're allowing them to plan, you're actually giving them some space, which is a great gift. The other thing is, if your manager gets wrapped over the knuckles by their manager because of a mistake that you made, it hurts. It's going to burn, right? So what happens is if you make the mistake and you go to your manager and say, this has just happened, just a heads up, I'm working on it, then that is a great way for them to know you can be trusted. You're not going to try and hide your mistakes and hang them out to dry, because if it comes out, they're going to get into trouble way before you do. The other thing around mistakes as well is, where possible, say, I've made a mistake, this is my plan, can you vet it for me? It's not always possible when we've made a mistake to fix it ourselves, but that doesn't mean we might not have a plan. And I think coming with a problem and a solution, even if it means a bit of work, is always better than just going, I made a mistake, now you fix it. Because that does not enhance trust. Without trust, we can't have autonomy. So I think it's really important that you keep people in the loop and that you proactively take responsibility for fixing the mistake as well. Even if it's a situation of, you don't have the full answer. One of the ways I like to avoid mistakes is, or at least minimize them, is by sharing draft plans, draft ideas, insights gained along the way. The reason for this is because if you're keeping people in the loop where you're going, even at a high level, at least they can put up their hand and go, hold on, you're veering off course. Or hold on, just tell us, how do you see this adding to the end product that we're looking at, right? And here we can do it a variety of ways. The moment a problem comes up, share your ideas immediately. When a client asks for something, or when your boss asks for something, share a mock-up, even if it's a rough sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but give them an idea of what's happening in your mind. And even if you co-create that first stage together, just to really make sure that what's in the brief and what's in their mind is actually what you're going to put on paper, so to speak. One of the things that I hate most in the world is writing reports. I cannot explain to you the pain that it causes me. It's not that I'm bad at it, it's just that I really don't enjoy the process. So what I like to do is, if a client asks me for a report, I give them the table of contents the way I see it broken down in my mind. I get them to approve the table of contents so that we know that what I'm going to give them actually is going to comply to some form of logic and thinking that they've at least applied. So the next thing that I think is a bit more of a difficult one to manage, but I think it's important that we talk about it, is talking about obstacles and challenges and how you try to work around them. So again, something's gone wrong, or you're not getting through to something. And where I see this a lot is with junior team members who just don't have buy-in from positional power status, or people who they don't have all the necessary networking and connections in place in a business yet. Go to your manager and say, this is my plan. This is what I intend to do. But I might need help here, because here I need to connect back to finance or project management, and I don't know the people there. Will you please introduce me, or just help me get going in a relationship with them? And these things, ideally, you should be highlighting a couple of days before they need it. Don't wait until the pawpaw hits the fan, as I like to say, before you highlight that there is going to be an obstacle. The sooner you can get your manager engaged in assisting you and giving him a very valid reason why he's needed or she is needed, the sooner you are going to get them on board, because you can be trusted not to wait till the last minute and spring things on them. And a concluding thought. I want to leave you with this idea of the things I've asked you today. Don't wait for a manager to ask you for that. Rather get in, take the initiative, and start doing it. You see, sometimes people can feel it's irritating when you've got this buzzing person who's asking all these questions. But at least no one can say, this person never reached out. They never told us they didn't understand. They didn't give us opportunity to see that they had an obstacle, that they had a challenge, or that they were uncertain about a way forward. So almost rather take the initiative. And if you're feeling a little uncertain, then take the initiative by saying in an email or in a WhatsApp message, whichever is preferred in your organization, hi there, I'm thinking the following might be positive for our communication or for our way of collaborating. Do you agree? So, for example, one of the things that I loved doing when I was working for a manager is I would do a weekly progress report. So every Friday I'd send out the top 3 to 5 things that I moved in the week, got done, the progress I made, the things I'm focusing on, the next 3 to 5 things I'm focusing on for the next week, and any challenges that I'm waiting for feedback from other people, so that the manager could see that if I had dependencies where I was getting stuck. Already, I would have mentioned it earlier, but this is just a wrap up of the week. So I would mail this through and say to the manager, I would like to send you this every week so that you know where I stand, even if we are having weekly discussions. At least if you need something to refer back to or someone asks you a question, you've got a way of remembering without having to even wait to contact me. Would you like this? Do you approve? Do you think there's something else that should be on there that you'd like to see? By the way, that's also an excellent way of managing timesheets, because if you're forever keeping up with those, then timesheets are easy because you can plan easier for the next week. And you can also go look back and see what it was that you worked on. And then you can just see how much time you had planned in your diary for that. So I think that's all for today with regards to being responsibly accountable and knowing what you don't know when you need to know it. If you've enjoyed the stream and you're looking for more, we record these and upload them to Facebook and YouTube. I have no idea what Facebook is. I'll start telling someone to develop it. So we upload them after the fact to YouTube and Facebook, so you can always go and see them there again. And then, of course, related articles are made available on my website, Perform Forward. And these live streams are held every Wednesday as LinkedIn live streams at 9 a.m. South African time. So that's GMT -2 or SAST. I would love to hear from you and love to hear, is this filling your bucket? Is this what you need? So if you've got any questions or suggestions for these topics, please leave a comment on your platform of choice and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'll see you next week at the Performance Cafe.